Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, welcome to CCG and CCG Ambassadors Roundtable this afternoon. Without further ado, the opening session will be presided over by CCG Secretary General and CCG Springer Book Serial Editor, Dr. Mabel Miao.
We are honored to be hosting this Ambassadors Roundtable, China and the World at the Critical Conjuncture, featuring the launch of the China and the World in a changing context, perspectives from ambassadors to China. Please allow me to introduce the guests who so kindly took your time to participate in our event today. His Excellency Zhang Yongxin, President of China National Committee for Pacific Economic Cooperation. Welcome. His Excellency Rohamatullah Mohammed Osman, Permanent Representative of African Union to China. Welcome. His Excellency Nicolas Chaput, European Union Ambassador to China. Welcome. His Excellency Paulo Estivalete de Mascuta. Welcome, Ambassador of Brazil to China. His Excellency Luis Diego Monsavi, Ambassador of Colombia to China. Welcome. His Excellency Carlos Miguel Pereira Hernandez, Ambassador of Cuba to China. Welcome. His Excellency Mohammed El-Badru, Ambassador of Egypt to China. Welcome. His Excellency Tishum Toga Shinaka, Ambassador of Ethiopia to China. Welcome. His Excellency Lina Kasam Mikola, Ambassador of Finland to China. Welcome. His Excellency Laurent Billy, Ambassador of France to China. Welcome. His Excellency Archie Kaladia, Ambassador of Georgia to China. Welcome. His Excellency Raja Dato Nusua, Ambassador of Malaysia to China. Welcome. His Excellency Jusis Siadi Kuri, Ambassador of Mexico to China. Welcome. Her Excellency Signe Buridesi, Ambassador of Norway to China. His Excellency Jose Augusto Duarte, Ambassador of Portugal, China. Welcome. His Excellency Basil Constitunescu, Ambassador of Romania to China. Welcome. Okay, maybe on the way. Yeah. His Excellency James Kimoyo, Ambassador of Rwanda to China. Welcome. Her Excellency Alenka Suhadolnik, Ambassador of Slovenia to China. Welcome. His Excellency Rafael de Zaquila, Ambassador of Spain to China. Also on the way. Yeah. His Excellency Bernardino Regazzoni, Ambassador of Switzerland to China. Welcome. And Mr. Mustafa Abid, Charge d'Affaires, Embassy of Tunisia to China. Welcome. Together with a number of senior embassy officials, welcome all of you. Of course, and Dr. Henry Huiyao Wang, founder and president of Center for China and Globalization, the editor of this series. Mr. Gou Haodong, CCG Senior Fellow, former Deputy Representative of Chinese Mission to the African Union, welcome you. Mr. William R. Chu, Editorial Director, Business Economics, Political Sciences, and Law, Springer Nature, who is joining us online. Yeah, he is already online, I guess. And Dr. Lina Li, Regional Director, China, Springer Nature, welcome. We also welcome Mr. Sun Mingxi, the Counselor at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, European Department. Welcome. And his colleague, Ms. Sun Juan, Deputy Director of European Department at MFA. Welcome. We also have invited 20 media representatives from China Daily, People's Daily, CGTN, Global Times, Financial Times, and the Associated Press, and other mainstream domestic and foreign news agencies. Welcome all of you. We thank all the 27 ambassadors who contributed their insights to China and the world in a changing context, this book, and the ambassadors who so kindly showed support for making this book happen. This book is published by Springer Nature with free access online and is edited by CCG President Dr. Huiyao Wang and I. Now, let us watch a short video about this book, please. Thank you. So many familiar faces and the insights, opinions. The new book already on the table. Please have a look and read it. Next, please join me in welcoming Mr. William Archer for his remarks. Before he starts, I want to express my sincere appreciation for him and Springer Nature for giving us with such a prominent platform for publishing our new book, China and the Globalization series. Yeah. Please.
Can you hear me?
William? Yeah. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Good.
can.
Thank you, Mabel. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm William Mockauer, Editorial Director, Business Economics, Politics, and Law from Springer Nature. I'm tuning in today from Singapore, where I'm based. It's an honor and a privilege to give a few remarks about this newly published volume in the China and Globalization book series. China and the World in a Changing Context, Perspectives from Ambassadors to China is the title of this new edited book by Wang Weiyao and Lu Miao, who are also both the series editors. This book, like the previous 3 already published volumes in the series, are freely available to anyone interested to read it. As of today, the book has gained, in the very short time since publication, 8,600 chapter downloads, and that is certainly a formidable start. The book series has launched 4 books within the past 6 months. All of them have witnessed excellent online discoverability. The first 3 volumes continue to grow in terms of chapter downloads on a daily basis. This is not only a strong sign of high quality editorial work, the recruitment of top scholars and professionals as contributing authors, and the themes that are so crucial to the global discussion about China on the world stage today. The viral nature of these volumes being discovered and read so quickly is also a result of the formidable outreach CCG is undertaking to ensure its partner communities around the world become aware of these works. Also, since these volumes appear on Springer Nature's widely distributed platform Springer Link and are marked as open access, there is an additional viral effect that results in further discoverability. The first two volumes in the series, Consensus or Conflict, an edited work compiled by Wang Huiyao and Alistair McKee, and the second book, The Asian 21st Century, an authored volume comprised of essays by former Singaporean ambassador to the United Nations, Kishore Mahbubani, both set the stage for prospects of better global cooperation and multilateralism in a rapidly evolving economic and geopolitical landscape across the planet. Wang Huiyao and Alistair McKee put together in Consensus or Conflict a broad and diverse team of contributing authors, including some very renowned scholars and professionals, to take on the challenges the world faces today. And the essays in Kishore Mahbubani's book also address many of the same themes. With the third volume, Transition and Opportunity, the series pivoted from a more general international relations landscape into the realm of international business and the role multinationals play within the economic and geopolitical landscape that the first two volumes of China and Globalization introduce. With this fourth volume, the series now presents with these 23 chapters some hands-on experience ambassadors from around the world describe about their country's collaboration with China in terms of areas such as trade and investment, regional economic cooperation, sustainable development, technology and innovation, entrepreneurship, green partnerships, just to name a few. Many of the ambassadors provide in their essays historic overviews of the relations their countries have had with China going back many decades. I was interested to read in Ambassador Jarno Styrjele's chapter that Sino-Finnish diplomatic relations go back more than 70 years. Other ambassadors reveal the continued strong cooperation between their countries and China, despite the challenges and difficulties the COVID-19 pandemic has caused. In this context, I'm thinking about Ambassador Claire Fernley's chapter about New Zealand's efforts, together with other countries, including China, to keep supply chains open. Ambassador Jose Luis Bernal lays out a detailed overview of the Mexico-China strategic partnership, highlighting trade, economic development in both directions, the engagement in the arts and cultural as well as culinary spaces, and he touches upon tourism. Thai Ambassador Artayut Srizamut provides an overview of the ASEAN-China relationship, which celebrated its 30th anniversary just last year. China is one of the founding members of ASEAN. In personal accounts, Ambassadors Asen Bukhelfa from Algeria and Sarah Serim from Kenya share experiences and comparisons between China and their countries on the eradication of poverty. Ambassador Hideo Tarumi presents an overview of Sino-Japanese relations, highlighting the cooperation during the COVID-19 pandemic and the longing for the ability for Chinese to travel again to Japan and for Japanese to travel again to China. He points out that in 2019, before the pandemic, the number of Chinese tourists who visited Japan reached 9.59 million. I'd love to continue to try to capture each ambassador's contribution in a very brief description, but we will have the opportunity to hear many individual accounts directly from ambassadors later today. What I have discovered in this volume, China and the world in a changing context, perspectives from ambassadors to China, is it's really a collection of 23 individual stories by ambassadors that include detailed analyses of the history, status quo, and future of relations between their countries in China. They are very diverse in their approach and in their style of storytelling. That really makes for both really informed as well as engaging reading. I'm convinced this volume, like the first 3 volumes in the series, will be quite a success. Thanks very much.
Thank you, William. Now, let's welcome Dr. Henry Huiyao Wang for an introduction of this book and the presentation on the 2 sessions. Please, Dr. Wang.
Thank you, Mabel. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, media representative, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It's really a great honor to be here to welcome all of you today on behalf of Center for China and Globalization. We are thrilled to celebrate with you today the release of CCG latest publication, China and the World in a Changing Context, Perspective from Ambassadors in China. China and the World in the Changing Context, Perspective from Ambassadors to China is the 4th book in the China and the Globalization series that has been published with Springer Nature, one of the top global publishers in the world. This book series seeks to create a balanced global perspective by gathering views of highly influential policy scholars, practitioners, and opinion leaders from around the world. Of course, the editors of this book, including myself and Dr. Mabel Miao. Our motivation for creating this book series draws on the spirit of core culture of CCG, which is based on the belief that a globalized world is a core component for the creation of a peaceful and sustainable world that can contribute to the mutual benefit of all mankind. Ambassadors are kind of a bridge and also bellwether of the globalization, and you are also the ambassadors of a friendship. Your diplomatic envoys serve as a pivotal contact point between nations across the whole range of fields, ranging from economic and culture to health to environment. The special group of ambassadors in this book, those based in China, are at the forefront of what for many countries is one of their most important bilateral relationships, as well as one of the most striking and consequential aspects of global affairs in the 21st century. And of course, the rise of China on the world stage and its exchanges with the world. In our globalized world of the transnational supply chains, dense people-to-people linkages, and shared various risk threats, the roles that ambassadors and embassies play has become more important than ever because countries are so deeply connected and interdependent. And as China plays an increasing role in the global economy and global affairs, its relations with other countries have become a subject of growing interest and at a time of contention. Plugged into the politics of their home capitals, policies of their home capital actually, but also tasked with keeping a finger on the pulse of China and the world at large, ambassadors have a unique perspective on some of the major issues of our time, such as COVID-19 trends in the global global economy, ongoing shift in geopolitics, and opportunities and challenges facing global governance. Their insights are useful not only for the policymakers, but also for the academics, entrepreneurs, media, and anyone trying to make sense of a rapidly changing world. So since it was founded, the Center for China and Globalization has recognized the unique role and expertise of ambassadors and worked hard to establish and forge close relations with ambassadors from both developing and developed countries from every corner of the globe. This includes regular engagement with foreign embassies in Beijing by hosting visits to CCG office in Beijing. And also we have accepted many invitations to participate in face-to-face meetings and also events that hold at the embassy as well. So CCG is conducting many discussions, roundtables on topics including trade and economic relations, geopoliticals, and global governance, and of also the international relations that of our contemporary time. Some foreign diplomats have also worked with CCG to pass their constructive views and suggestions to Chinese government. In addition to those original ad hoc meetings, CCG also hosts special events that bring foreign ambassadors together and has created a platform at its flagship forums to facilitate dialogue and bridge gaps between China and the rest of the world. Since the launching of these roundtables, we have found the perspectives that official envoys share to be both, their shares to be both invaluable and illuminating, not only in convening the views and experience of their own country, but also for their insights into the global affairs and China's development. For some time, we have also wanted to share those perspectives with a wide audience to contribute in a small way to opening up the conversation on China, globalization, and other pressing topics of our time. It is in this spirit that the CCG has compiled this volume of original works by ambassadors to China from a wide range of countries, hoping to provide a balanced and diverse perspectives on the scope of the world today. So I will just briefly introduce our authors. Actually, we have a very strong contributors and guest speeches that we have collected in this book. So this book actually includes 23 essays and 10 speeches from 27 ambassadors in China, representing Europe, Africa, Asia, and Americans and Oceania. So that's really a great. We see the ambassador from Europe, and we have quite a number of European ambassadors actually contributed to this unique book. So we're going to hear more from their views today. And also we have a voice from Africa. We have a number of American ambassadors in China contribute to this book. So it's really quite well represented, including our ambassador from African Union. Of course, the European ambassador, we have the ambassador from European Union, so it's quite a large representation as well. And we have also voice from Asia, that ambassador from Japan, and also a number of ambassadors from Asia, including ambassador from Indonesia and also Malaysia also. So that's quite a interesting view. And voice from Oceania as well. That's two important countries as well. And here's the voice from Americans that actually, I apologize, the clip was a little short, but basically we have quite a number of ambassadors from Americans, both North American and South American. So, we're glad to see all of them, quite a few of them actually presented today. So we are very pleased to welcome all of you. And so the list, actually, I'm not going into detail. We have already seen that just now. So 27 ambassadors altogether, including the 23 contributors of the book. So basically, this book actually, we hear from William. He actually touched upon the theme. So the first part is about mutually beneficial relations. So that we have quite a number of ambassadors touch on that subject, including Mexico, Georgia, and of course also Azerbaijan. So quite a few ambassadors, Ethiopia and Spain, and also China, African Union ambassadors, and Kenya and Ireland. So this is really a great subject that we touched upon. And the second part of the book is basically talk about facing global challenges together. As we all know, we are in the this pandemic, and of course we have also a geopolitical risk, that is the danger, the crisis actually we are going through right now. But this book basically foresees some of the global challenges that we have to face together. So I think we have also ambassador from Slovenia, ambassador from Finland, ambassador from Netherlands, ambassador from Colombia, all mentioned about those challenges. And so it's, and also we have an ambassador from Algeria, ambassador from New Zealand, ambassador from Japan, ambassador from Portuguese, all mentioned about this part. So this is a collection of great views from all the ambassadors. Again, on the third part of the book, actually, we talk about creating a common future. So we have ambassador from Egypt, we have an ambassador from Tanzania, from Cuba, from Indonesia. So all touched upon this great, wide-ranging subject. And also ambassador from Poland and from Thailand and from Brazil. So I'm very grateful for all the ambassadors that taking your time to write the book and to contribute. So this is really a good, probably the first time internationally publishing a collection of ambassadors' original works here in China. So CCG is very pleased to work with Springer Nature, one of the top renowned international publisher. And as Bill said, it's a free downloads, and so anybody can have a look. And we hope that this book will have a better also as well. In addition, we actually had also select a number of ambassadors, their speeches at a CCG, venue or events. For example, CCG has held the China and Globalization Forum for the last 7 years, and every year we're doing a special roundtable, and then we have collected all the speeches actually from ambassador, and we selected some of them, and with their agreement, we now publish those speeches as well. And also, we have also selected some of the speeches that ambassadors spoke at Center for China's the Global Young Leader Dialogue Forum. So those is also very important forum that we're holding this year again. Also, by the way, I would like to mark your calendar on June 18 and the 19th. We're going to have the 8th China and Globalization Forum. We're going to have Ambassador Roundtable again. We'll have a Global Young Leader Dialogue Forum. You are all invited to that event. So that's really, we have a variety of ambassadors, not only contributed the articles, but also, their speeches also they have contributed to us. So we hope to collect more. So I think that basically, this is what I have really prepared. I think given the time, we're not going into details of all the detailed message of the different ambassadors. So I'll just save the time, and we'll publish that later. But I would like to finally conclude a bit about the 2 sections we just concluded over the weekend, last week. So the 2 sections, as we all know, we hope that our roundtable touches a bit on that as well, that China has set its new economic growth target this year around 5.5%. Actually, CCG has also worked with World Bank that we had held a launching of the World Bank Global Prospect Report. That World Bank project China at 5.1% for 2022. So I think, about ballpark of the 5.5%, but even 5.5%, it means almost $1 trillion adding to a GDP on China, which almost equal to a mid-sized country annual GDP. So it's quite a big challenge for China to achieve that. So how to balance this stability, also the philosophy of sustainable development, how to provide high quality development. So I think one of the major challenges the government taking is actually giving tax holidays. There are about 2.5 trillion tax holidays given to the tax rebates given to the small and medium enterprises. China going to have to replace 60 million the new employment. 11 million of that will be college students. So it's a lot a daunting task to really work, and also we have to really do more to really set economic growth to work. So how to really deepening reform? It's really another thing. I think that China is really working on that. So that has been well said. And consumption, the inflation is capped below 3%. Will be, I think that is the objective. Again, opening. China will continue to open, and environment protection is emphasized, housing is emphasized. I'm sure you're all familiar with that. And economic growth is already targeted. And about Ukraine, I mean, we heard both Foreign Minister Wang Yi and Premier Li has spoken at NPC CPPCC section that China supports all efforts to resolve the Ukraine crisis by peaceful means. And China is willing to work with the international community to play a positive role for an early return of the peace in the country. So that's, I think it's a very strong message. And China, first of all, I think when Foreign Minister Wang Yi said that all countries, sovereignty and territorial integrity is respected, Ukraine is no exception. And China also support all efforts to resolve the Ukraine crisis by peaceful means. I think China is willing to play active role there and positive role. So that's what actually Premier Li has said. And also about the human right, I think the recent incident involving a gross violation of the women's right that has widely known in China has indeed deeply distressing. I think the government has really sacked about 17 officials, giving this very severe punishment, and so this woman status and the right has to be respected. And as a matter of fact, the CCG on March 8, International Women's Day, we held an event with UN Women here in China, and we have Finnish ambassador, Sweden ambassador, and Rwanda ambassador all came here. So and also 5 UN agencies, and we had a great discussion on that. So of course, the business environment government is going to pursue continuously to give all business environment, improve the role reform of the government functions that will continue, and U.S.-China relations. I think the message is that now the door has been opened, it should be shut again, and should there be any decoupling. China-U.S. cooperation benefits both countries and the world, and there should be more dialogue and communication between the two countries. So I'm glad that top diplomats Yang Jiechi and the Secretary National Security Jack Sullivan just met yesterday. So we hope that there's some good dialogues going, and then we have an enhanced understanding on the current situation. So finally, just on openness. So basically, the message that I think Premier Li gave you, and also during this conference, 2 sections, China will maintain the course of a wide openness, no matter how the international environment may change, just as the course of the Yangtze and the Yellow Rivers will not be reversed. And anything that is conducive to expanding the high level opening up, we will go for it. There has been 40 years since China began this journey. Opening up has brought benefits to all the country, its people, and the world. We will not and must not close this door opportunity. So that basically is the message of 2 sections. So I think I'm closing here, and I want to thank you all, taking your precious time to come this afternoon, and also thank our all great friends coming here. So we'll start our roundtable, and then really thank you all very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Dr. Wang's presentation on the new book and 2 sessions. Moving forward, please allow me to invite our distinguished guests in joining a roundtable discussion. In an intertwined world where tensions and conflicts continue to rise, and geopolitics and international relations often seem unclear, we want to provide a channel for the bridge building between China and the world, and the ambassadors who are important envoys to our country to offer their insights. Let's welcome our excellencies to share their comments on our featured book today, and the ways to strengthen bilateral cooperation with China for views of their own countries. This roundtable will be moderated by Dr. Wang. So floor is yours, Dr. Wang.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mabel. So I think that just to kick off, I would like to invite first maybe a Chinese guest, His Excellency Zhang Yongxin, Ambassador Zhang, to just give some further perspective from China, and then we'll start with all our distinguished ambassadors. So perhaps, so we would like to have this maybe keep to around 5 minutes each speech, and then we're going to really take good notes, and we really hope that we can amplify your voice, and really hope that this is going to be very productive brainstorming and construct discussion. So Ambassador Zhang, why don't you go first?
Thank you. Dr. Wang Huiyao, President of CCG, Your Excellency, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good afternoon. First, I would like to extend my thanks for CCG's invitation to this important event. And I'd also like to congratulate Dr. Wang Huiyao for his effort of bringing ambassadors to China to the CCG's flagship forum, the Ambassadors Roundtable, to share their perspectives on various hotspot issues and their views on China in particular. My appreciation also goes to all the ambassadors and the diplomats present here today, and those who shared their insights to this book. I have the honor to serve as a Chinese ambassador. I know that ambassadors are not only envoys of governments, but also the bridges of peoples. They forge invaluable channels for states to learn more about each other, to listen and to be heard, to expand cooperation and manage differences. Thanks to their extensive international experience, this book presents unique perspectives on the overall view on China, bilateral relations and cooperation on multilateral issues, which demonstrates their commitment to enhance bilateral relations and the friendship of the two peoples. Ladies and gentlemen, today the world has witnessed a persistent and unchecked pandemic, accelerating changes unseen in a century. The COVID-19 pandemic is far from over. As of today, it causes over 400 million confirmed cases and more than 6 million deaths. Its impact is not only on the public health, the global industry and the supply chain have been disrupted. Commodity prices continue to rise. The world's poor population has increased by more than 100 million. Some developing countries have fallen back into poverty and instability. Many in developed countries are also living through a hard time. As President Xi Jinping rightly pointed out, that countries are not sailing separately in some 190 small boats, but are rather all in a giant ship on which our shared destiny hinges. Confronted with common challenges, only through cooperation and concerted efforts of the international community can we effectively fight against the pandemic and achieve a robust, sustainable, and resilient recovery. History has shown to us that conflict, confrontation, and unilateralism will only lead to retrogress, while peace, cooperation, and multilateralism will promote the development of the human society. China has shown its commitment to reform and opening up and uphold cooperation and multilateralism. In such a context, I think foreign diplomats in China have the mission to pass the willingness of China to their respective countries to work together for a better future for all. Just like the Beijing Winter Olympic official model, together for a shared future. Ladies and gentlemen, as an international co-chair of the Pacific Economic Cooperation Council, PECC, and the chair of China's National Committee for PECC, I would like to take this opportunity to say a few words for our national committee. Our national committee is a national organization established in accordance with the PECC Charter. Dr. Wang Huiyao is also our council member of National Committee. Our major tasks are engaging in overall research on the Pacific economic development and cooperation, participating in the activities of PCC and the APEC, promoting multilateral and bilateral exchanges with the PCC and its member economies. We are looking forward to establish close relations with the embassies from in and outside of the region to promote not only economic cooperation, but also friendship of the peoples. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Zhang, for your great opening remarks. And so I think that has really, giving some Chinese perspective as well. So now we're getting into the Ambassador Roundtable, and I would like to really first invite Her Excellency Ramatali Ms. Osama, the permanent representative of African Union in China. So your turn, please. Because I also think that we have many ambassadors, but I'd like to maybe give African Union, European Union, the first two spot. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. And thank you for giving us this opportunity, not only to meet today and talk about the book, but also giving us the chance to reflect what we are doing as African Union in China. We did our best to summarize in this book the activities of the African Union Office, which was established 3 years ago. But generally speaking, this book, I think it's apart from the part which related to the African Union, I think having, views of all over the world, it really reflects the nature of this center, the globalization. Now in this book, we have almost a global picture of all the relations between countries and China. With regard to the China and the world and China globally, I think that the decade from 2008 up to 2018 is a significant period for the Chinese contemporary history and politics. It was during this period, critical decade, that China emerged as a major economic, diplomatic, and military power in the world. This rise is fundamentally shaping the 21st century and world history, of course. In turn, this rise has led to economic and political rivalries. This is most apparent in the rapid deterioration of the China relations with some of the major powers in the world, which look at this rise as it undermines their sovereignty and sometimes their dignity, which is not the case, I think, which is not supposed to be the case. The rivalryism had always shaped the history of mankind. Always, all through history, we have powers which are competing with each other. However, we believe that multilateralism has always been the key to the huge economic successes of the last half century. The need for a well-functioning multilateralism, international economic and hence political system is greater than ever as globalizations proceed. The founders of the post-Second World War international economic system knew and experienced the enormous costs of individual actions taken outside the multilateral framework in the 30s. China is convinced, as I listened to the speech by the Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs recently, that multilateralism is the cornerstone of the greater democracy in international relations and an essential to addressing global challenges in the 21st century. We in the African Union believe in multilateralism. I thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador Osama. So it's good to hear your voice and from African Union. Now I'd like to have Ambassador, His Excellency Nicholas Chapis, and from European Union in China. Thank you.
Thank you, Beya. Thank you for providing this renewed opportunity to engage within CCG. I think I express the views of many of my colleagues if I say that in a shrinking communication environment in China, for us, very difficult sometimes to get our views known, CCG has stood up and remained a core platform for, as you say, for us to express views and for you to relay them. So thank you. I'm personally extremely grateful, and this book is a tangible evidence of your commitment to give the ambassadors in China a possible speaker, loudspeaker sometimes. As you know, in a little more than 2 weeks, the European Union and China will hold their annual summit. Last year, there was not one. There was an intermission for well-known reasons. So we are resuming high-level symmetry, but the context has continued to evolve and change, and sometimes dramatically. And I would use my 2 or 3 minutes to inform colleagues and yourself about how we view the objectives of the 1st of April 2022 summit. The first objective is to manage at the highest level what we see in Europe as an increasingly difficult relationship. And in order to do that, we are calling our Chinese counterparts in the preparation that we are undergoing right now to both endorse positive developments while addressing concerns. It cannot be a win-win situation. We have wins like on climate, biodiversity, energy, agriculture, and some other sectors. But we have losses in many others, starting with the continued lack of mobility between Europe and China, and I could say between China and the rest of the world. And this continuous lack of mobility is having a disastrous impact on European perception of China. We have concerns, of course, which go further than mobility, but I don't have the time to list them right now. But the idea is that there is a balance that we need to achieve, that we hope that our Chinese friends will understand that in Europe today, in order to move forward with China, to partner up with China, to join hands with China, well, we need to address concerns and not sweep them under the rug. And first and foremost, on 1st of April, unfortunately, the main focus will be to muster or enlist as much support possible from China as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, entrusted with a responsibility to maintain global peace and security, to help Europe to stop the war in Ukraine. And in order to do that, we really call up all our Chinese friends to name the aggressor and to stand by the victim. In that war, there can be no so-called neutrality. And in fact, neutral powers on 4th of March have voted in the UN against the war. This is new, and this has to be noted when China seems to claim some kind of neutrality. We hope also through this summit, at a moment where tensions are flaring up among big powers, that we can demonstrate, the EU and China, the value of engagement in global affairs. Now that's what your book does, even if most of the contributions were written 2 years ago. It's amazing, I read part of it yesterday while downloading it for free, thank you, how much very little has changed on our expectations towards China. And so it is a wake-up call, this book, that if China believes in what it says it wants to achieve, which is a peaceful and prosperous globalization, then we need to demonstrate together the value of engagement, which I call in my speech, walk the talk. And to walk the talk, we need to do it on investment, finance, trade. But we need also to restore some kind of commonality between our people who cannot see each other right now. And in order to do that, and that would be my short conclusion, we need to learn on both sides how to handle complexity and long-term perspectives. And the question is, and will remain so in the months and years to come here in China, what does China want? But for us Europeans, it's clear that the future of China is not to be alone. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Nicholas. And what a lot of your points is well noted. I think that absolutely, China and the EU, European countries, has a deep ties and a vital interest of working together, and of course also that China and Europe, EU has signed this comprehensive investment treaty, and so there's many things that we can promote further, and also as far as the Ukraine crisis is concerned. President Xi had a dialogue, virtual summit with French President Macron and German Chancellor Scholz, and President Xi said China would like to do all its best to see a peaceful solution. China would like to work with the International Commission on that. So I think so this crisis, I think, probably brought EU and China together more closer, probably. So let's work to our best efforts. Thank you. Now I'd like to have our Brazil ambassador, Her Excellency, Miss Kutita. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you, Dr. Wang, Dr. Mabel, for the opportunity. It was really a privilege to take part in this enterprise. As you mentioned, that this is the first, and I don't recall having seen another book like this at any point. As was mentioned by Ambassador Chapuis, it seems to be there seems to be a shrinking space for communication, and CCG has been tireless in its effort to keep the channels open. Ambassadors in this shrinking space have a larger role, which is good perhaps for us. We have a bigger share, but it's a smaller pie, and we hope that the pie also starts to grow again very soon. I think that many of the points that were mentioned by me and my colleagues in the book reflect a common perception. In the case of our bilateral relationship with China, the extraordinary success of China's economic growth in the last 40 years had a transformational impact on the world. In this period, China went from being a faraway country to being by far Brazil's largest trading partner. Even in the most recent period, trade has continued to increase at a very fast pace, to the point that nowadays China is not only our largest trading partner, but its share is more than twice as large as the next trading partner. In the case of investment, China has also grown enormously in importance, but in the most recent period, this has become much more difficult because investment requires contact, investment requires travel, and this has not been possible. As you mentioned with regard to the two sessions, the Yangtze River cannot, the current cannot be reversed, but it does need management. In order, as Chinese history shows, we need to avoid the current from overflowing or from destroying. We have to manage this, and this requires contact. And another great initiative that CCG has been conducting these last few years is the Global Young Leaders Initiative. I think this is great. It's something with a long perspective, but definitely we have been going through a very difficult time. The fact that we have had virtually no contacts, especially between the private sector and the think tanks in person-to-person contacts, means that we are losing time at a moment when dialogue is ever more important, because the circumstances we are in have become more difficult than they were when we wrote this book. This also refers to what I mentioned in my brief essay about multilateralism. The world is facing a huge number of challenges which cannot be solved individually, not even by the largest nations. So we need cooperation, and this cooperation requires engagement of all. China's enlarged participation, China's size, not only the size of its population, but its capabilities nowadays give it an enhanced responsibility, whilst of course a legitimate claim to have a greater say in the way multilateral organizations are run and multilateral initiatives are conducted. Now, of course, China is not the only one responsible for the current difficulties that we face in international organizations, but it does share a responsibility. And to a certain extent, I have the impression that China has become very conservative. Its defense of multilateralism is welcome, but we cannot simply stand in defense of what was agreed in the past and not look at the changed context and work proactively to try to build common solutions to common challenges, which in some cases can even represent a danger to our own survival, to the survival of the world itself. But I think that this kind of initiative is an important step towards keeping the doors open to enhancing communication. There are clearly very different cultural aspects in, for instance, in decision-making in China, which are not always well understood by us. And at the same time, China sometimes has difficulty understanding decision-making in the rest of the world. There is no alternative to more and more dialogue and good faith effort to work constructively and together towards building a common future. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Yeah, Ambassador from Brazil. So your point is also well noted as well. And thank you for your contributions. And next, I'd like to invite Ambassador Luis Diego Monsavi, Ambassador of Colombia to China. You are also a contributor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang Weiyao, good friend Henry, dear Mabel, colleagues and friends. as a contributor. It's an honor to participate in the event to launch this book. I would like to express my gratitude to CCG for always inviting me to enrich the discussion on the most critical global issues. Nowadays, the world faces unpredictable situations that push our countries to work together to find solutions. This book is a wonderful approach to realize the efforts of each of our countries to defeat the challenges and how China has been playing a crucial role. On the one hand, the crisis of COVID-19 has dramatically disrupted humanity and forced it to reshape the trends and paths for the future. On the other hand, when we were recovering but still struggling with the economic consequences and changes, we are now experiencing the horrors and ghosts of the past, witnessing a nonsense war in Ukraine. Today, I want to share my thoughts on the effects of the pandemic, the cooperation we have built with China in this regard, and the need to call for a multilateral action to prevent an escalation of the conflict, to preserve the most important lesson we have learned from the history. We need to live in peace and create sustainable development for everyone. Even though the pandemic touched the whole world, our region, Latin America, was one of the most affected, and unveiling many other problems like inequality and structural economic disruptions. Colombia worked on different strategies to ensure economic recovery and inclusive growth, including vaccination program, fiscal expenditure, social relief programs, and subsidies. During the pandemic, our relationship with China continues to flourish and consolidate in terms of politics, economy, and cooperation. In terms of cooperation exchanges, even in these difficult times, China consolidated as the first Asian investor in Colombia and the second largest partner in exports and the first main partner in imports. The pandemic was one of the most significant signs of friendship regarding cooperation exchanges. In this context, both countries supported each other through donations. Moreover, the Chinese vaccines were vital for our national vaccination plan, in which we bought around 27 million vaccines from Sinovac. As you can see, we have overcome the crisis together with China, and we are looking forward to our promising future. Concerning recent events, we need to act as humankind to avoid instability and use multilateralism as a means to resolve any dispute. Colombia condemns the unjustifiable attacks against Ukraine, which contradicts international law and the United Nations Charter, and we invite to cease violence and find an immediate solution through dialogue and negotiations. Unquestionably, this should be the political will of all our countries, contributing with concrete actions and commitments. That's why it's very valuable to notice, for example, the article published by Dr. Wang Weiyao in the New York Times, which not only explains in detail the situation, but proposes a clear starting point on how China can be involved in a well-balanced solution. We need to stand together to prevent any war that will have severe consequences for the whole world. Peace and shared prosperity should always prevail. Finally, I want to thank CCG once again for hosting this event, for all the support during these 3 years as ambassador here, and for always inviting me to discuss the important issues in the world agenda. I'm finishing my term, as you know, in this incredible country, full of challenges and beautiful experiences. I'm convinced that the friendship between China and Colombia will last forever, and I'm committed to keeping working to deepen our ties from any place I'll be from now on. I hope to see you all again in the future. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ambassador Monsavi. You're also very good speech, and so you know you have reviewed a lot of good cooperation between China and Colombia. So since you have made a lot of contribution to this bilateral relation, so you are not leaving, but please remember CCG, and the door is always open. We'll welcome you coming back anytime. So thank you. Now I'd like to invite Her Excellency Carlos Miguel Pierre Hernandez, Ambassador of Cuba to China. You are also a contributor. Yeah, Ambassador, please.
Dr. Wang Weiyao, High Excellence Zhang Yunxin, dear colleagues. We live in complex time in which the objectivity on China and the world is manipulated almost on a daily basis by gigantic campaigns on disinformation and double standards. These campaigns usually follow the same MO. First, speech is aimed at dismantling any hint of progress from which on the basis of that reductionist logic. Books and articles are built, and the role of academia and the media is guided to extort or to sell as universal view that is based with a questionable content. That is why I would like to begin by congratulating Center for China and Globalization for this initiative that I consider to be valuable and appropriate to continue dismantling the narrative of the feasibility of China as a socialist nation whose political and economic system has proved to be able to generate material wealth in a sustainable way to promote social justice and happiness of people. China has become a fundamental force which promotes the establishment of an international relation multipolar system and a new international economic order while consolidating itself as a world leader in the economic recovery, in the fight against the pandemic, and in avoiding climate collapse. The success achieved in confronting the pandemic because of the certainty of adopted policy and strategies, including prioritizing people's life and health over market logic, together with its proven ability to materialize the socioeconomic goals that have been set so far, constitute a strength with talking about the future of China, regardless the international context and its fluctuation. When it is about China, Latin America and the Caribbean people are driving by a positive energy. It is a shared perception that China has established itself as an international actor of great relevance for Latin America and the Caribbean, has raised its level of development, has boosted its external projection, and reinforced its role on the international stage. That is, China has become a unifying factor, a balancing and development force whose long-term strategy provides for us a fundamental ingredient that our region needs for its independent, prosperous, and sustainable development. Cuba and China remain united in the struggle for peace, in defense for the true multilateralism, and the permanent defense of the principle of international law and the Charter of the United Nations. Both countries has been and will continue to be consistent in rejecting blockade and unilateral coercive policy, stigmatization, and politicization of issues that turn into campaign and political pressure against sovereign states. A few months ago, Cuba became the first country for Latin America and the Caribbean to sign the Vision and Action Plan for the joint promotion of the Belt and Road Initiative, after being the fifth nation from the region to join back in 2018. Last year, Cuba also joined the Belt and Road Energy Partnership. Important protocol were signed that will allow increasing export of Cuban fishery products, as well as continue to expand scientific technical cooperation in a new modality, such as research and the joint development of highly innovative products, medicine, and vaccine. Bilateral cooperation in the biotechnology sector has reached unprecedented level, which today we continue to strive to continue expanding for the benefit of both people and countries. The high level of bilateral political relationship and the unbreakable friendship between the two Communist parties, governments, and people allow us to continue strengthening a strategic alliance and a special relationship. In addition to consider each other good friends, brothers, and comrades, the relation between Cuba and China have unlimited potential that we have taken advantage for the benefit of our respective people and for the whole humankind. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Ambassador Fernandez, so for your good speech, and also you have reviewed good relations between China and Cuba. So thank you. Now we have our next friend, Her Excellency Mohammed Badri, Ambassador from Egypt to China, and also a contributor to the book. Ambassador, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang, Dr. Mabel, distinguished colleagues, distinguished guests. Thank you very much for hosting us in this book launching event, which I think is a very important signal to the efforts of CCG in fostering communication between China and the world, even though a lot of effort is needed in this, as has been presented. Distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you realize today is the anniversary of what is called the Ides of March. That is the day when Julius Caesar was assassinated. And that began the real Second World War that happened after the first Greco-Persian War. So I assume this is the Second World War. Not really a very nice omen to begin with, but nevertheless, it's part of our world reality. Having said that, I think that what you asked us to do, Dr. Wang, is to comment on China and the world in a changing context, or the bilateral relations. So I will focus more on the first one, as the second one can be read by everybody in this magnificent volume that you have published. So we are ambassadors here in China. We all know what China is. We all know what China is about. We all know as ambassadors here that China is fine, well, prospering, developing at a very rapid rate, in which we are all, I think, interested in learning from this model. However, the world is not. The world is ill. We have serious problems all over, serious international problems that we all need to address. Illness is not just about COVID, ladies and gentlemen. No, the illness of the world is about an aging planet, our bellicose situations that we're having, problems relating to trade, problems relating to geopolitical uncertainties, vulnerabilities. The list is very, very long. However, I think that we all agree, whether de facto or de jure, whether by what we say or what we have written in the book, or by the comments that there are certain cues to the illness that we are facing. I think that the first thing is the fact that we need to recognize that we are living in an interdependent world, as some of my colleagues here just mentioned it. However, interdependence here has reached such a large scale, like never before in the history of international relations. Today, political rivals are completely interdependent with each other. And that adds difficulty in management of problems among interstates, but also adds opportunities. I think that the second point we all agreed upon is the fact that we need to uphold the international multilateral structures as well as reinforcing it. We have no other alternative. History has shown us this, practice has made it sure for all of us. However, if we cannot change the realist perspective that all states are going in what we call interest defined in power, then let us rearrange our definition of what we mean by interest and what we mean by power. So let us understand, all of us, that the use of force is not going to be an addition to our interest. Let us all agree that the issue of relative gains has to be eliminated from our political dictionary and added to it the concept of aggrandizement of gains that we might have from our relations. Communications, ladies and gentlemen, is another very important aspect that we need to focus on in doing this. All on the all level, not only among politicians, but among societies, among what you might call third track diplomacy, among events that we are having, like the ones we are having here today. And I think that a final element that we all need to be very cognizant about is the fact that we have to respect each other's cultures and each other's way of life. Ladies and gentlemen, nobody holds the moral high ground in this world. Nobody. Yes, in the Old Testament, God said that he has created man in his own image, but there is no mandate for states to create other states in their own image. And I think this is something of fundamental importance, which needs to be reflected in relations between states or interstate relations. Now, if we take all of these issues above and see, I can tell you that they represent what we might call the framework of the relationship between Egypt and China. This relationship has been built on the concept of mutual respect. It has been built on the concept of a win-win situation. It has been built on the concept of non-interference in our affairs. And at the same time, we hold the same thing, the same principles to a very, very high level. Among all of this, we have had a very beneficial relationship. Ladies and gentlemen, China was the first country to come to the aid of Egypt when it came to fighting COVID-19. We have received in the beginning a million, followed by another million of the vaccines at a time when we really did not have any. No country in the world was able to offer us or to offer the world. And this is something we will never forget. At a time when we needed medical equipment to fight COVID and to reduce the death rates, China was there. We had nearly an airlift of planes flying from China and supporting Egypt in its request, whether by grants, but mostly purchased. So in reality, we have learned a lot. We have received a lot from China, and we have given China a lot. China is our largest, individually as a state, of course, it's our largest, trading partner. And of course, when it comes to investment, not yet, but we are hoping and we are striving for all of this. So this I wouldn't like to use the word a beacon for relations or how relations should be, or interstate relations should be, but I can tell you that it has been a very shining model in this regard. Ladies and gentlemen, as you all know, Egypt is the president designate of COP27, and we are going to host it in Sharm el-Sheikh in November of this year. And we are holding a lot of communications with a lot of countries in the world in order to reach a sort of a formula for all the problems of our aging planet. And in this regard, China is included and one of our main partners in order to reach a sort of an understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, our aging planet and our vulnerable health, as well as all the other problems that we have seen, are more of the reasons for us to change not only our agenda, but also our narrow modules of how we function in our interstate relations and our political behavior. And as Shakespeare once said, let us not commit a murder in healing a wound. The planet has so many wounds, ladies and gentlemen, that need to be healed by cooperation, by interdependence, by mutual understanding, by respect of each other. And all of this falls into the same category. Thank you very much, Professor.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador Bridget. And so for a warm speech, I think you speak well. The word is indeed you. I think you're right, and we need more communications. Exactly what we're doing right now, and also I think the five principles. You mentioned China also strongly uphold on that. So thank you again, Ambassador. Now I'd like to invite His Excellency Teshmon Tonga Chanaka, Ambassador of Ethiopia to China, also a contributor. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. Yes, I contributed to the book, and the essay was on China-Africa partnership. My good brother and friend, Ambassador Osman, has already articulated that aspect, so I wouldn't repeat myself on that. Now, let me, like my colleague, Ambassador Mohammed, look at the two issues you have asked us to contribute our perspective. One is China and the world in changing context. The second is our bilateral relationship. In fact, I haven't done justice to our bilateral relationship. I should have contributed on that to the book, but I have done it, but I don't regret. Now, what is a changing global context? I think Ambassador Mohammed has said it all. Truly speaking, I think we are passing through a very difficult period in our history. Not only the pandemic, but the current global situation is very changing, very complex, turbulent, unpredictable, and volatile. In fact, in some regards, I think humanity is confronted with existential issues of whether climate or peace or security, and so on and so forth. When I saw the topic, I tried to look at China and the world from four major considerations. One is Chinese foreign policy, which recently, in fact, the Prime Minister reiterated the China's foreign policy, that it pursues independent foreign policy. I'm raising this because it has a very important implication for us, because when China pursues independent foreign policy, it also respects policy independence of other countries. That is the basis for China and Ethiopia bilateral relationship. China respects our national priority. China respects our policy that we define for our national development. The second is strategy. China's approach has been what we call cooperative and collaborative approach. And currently, the Ethiopian and Chinese cooperation or partnership is termed as comprehensive strategic cooperative partnership. Cooperative because we agree on our priorities, and there is no imposition, and there is no conditions attached to our relationship. I find that extremely important. The third is China's, the second pillar is China's global standing, whether it is demographic, economic, military, diplomacy. I think China has a role to play in balancing the global world order. In that regard, China has a role to play. There is a responsibility that comes with it. But at the same time, there is also expectation, and China wants to have a place in global issues. That element, I think, in what we call having a fairer, rule-based, just global order, I think, is important, and China has a role to play in that regard. That's what I look at it as the second pillar of China and the world. The third is China's experience in development transformation. We all know that, as my brother Mohammed said, China transformed in a very shortest period of time. So there are huge and a lot of experiences that China can share. It has best practices that others can learn. My own country, Ethiopia, has been a beneficiary from sharing, for instance, agricultural transformation China has achieved, how it moved from agriculture to industrialization, and now how it is moving to high-tech. Within the context of South-South cooperation, within the context of FOCAC, I think China's experience in transformation is relevant, and China could play a role in that regard. The fourth pillar I have looked at is China has recently taken a very important global initiatives, which we cannot undermine. The Belt and Road Initiative. Many of us are members of the Belt and Road Initiative. We joined the Belt and Road Initiative because we found it beneficial to us. We found it beneficial to us in our infrastructure connectivity, not only at national level, but also connectivity in the continent, connectivity in the region. So we saw benefit in it and joined such a global initiative. Now, there is also another initiative, the recently initiated Global Development Initiative also is very important. Now, saying this, I think I'm not saying that China's role in the global, changing global context has no challenge, has no problem. We have problems. For instance, in our relationship, issues related to Belt and Road Initiative. Capacity is an issue, technology is an issue, finance is an issue, and so on and so forth. But what is the solution to this? The solution, I think, to this is, again, more cooperation, not less cooperation, and that is how I look at it. I hope and expect that China will play a balancing act in making the current global order fairer, just, and all-inclusive. Finally, let me briefly say about strengthening Ethio-China cooperation in the post-COVID world. For us, it is not only post-COVID, but post-conflict period in Ethiopia. Now, Ethiopia's cooperation with China is based on the same principles that I have said regarding Chinese foreign policy. China respects Ethiopia's policy independence. Our cooperation with China, as again, Ambassador Mohammed said, that it is based on equality, mutual respect, mutual benefit, and mutual interest. These are critical values. These are fundamental pillars for any relationship or partnership to have sustainable cooperation, because mutual benefit, without mutual benefit, there cannot be a sustainable partnership. If a partnership benefits one side, certainly it cannot be sustainable. That's why our relationship is based on those critical principles, and there is a good deal of trust, political trust at all levels. Now, when we say comprehensive strategic partnership, we also look at government to government, people to people. Like my colleague from Cuba said, we also have party to party relationship, and we have relationship at business level. So that makes it also comprehensive. Now, before COVID, the onset of COVID, as I said, China became in the last 20 years Ethiopia's largest trading partner, major source of foreign direct investment, and major financer of our infrastructure project, which we need badly. As a result of such a contribution, Ethiopia's economy grew in double digits. China's contribution is significant. But let me remind again my colleagues here that China participated in the policy framework that we have defined for our national priority. We have never been told or prescribed any policy direction, which I believe is extremely important. In post-COVID world, like again, China came to Ethiopia's rescue in protecting and the prevention of COVID much earlier than any other partner. Provision of personal protection equipment, sizable one, significant one actually. Not only that, but China sent its health experts, medical experts to Ethiopia to work with Ethiopian counterparts. Again, a very significant contribution. China has donated millions of vaccines to Ethiopia. We are very grateful to that. We are looking forward, but there are two important things, as I said. We would like to focus on digital economy. We would like to focus on building health capacity, health institution, and the health system, because we have learned, I think, our own lesson from COVID. Again, we look for foreign direct investment. We need to boost our trade. We will expect technology transfer from China to Ethiopia, which has been, I think, flowing smoothly. Those are my thoughts, Dr. Wang. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Chanaka. So I think you have made a very good examples of China cooperation with African countries, particularly Ethiopia, and you mentioned that is a Belt and Road. I think that is also a great plan for developing countries, and hope that you have also made some recommendations. I think we can continue to improve that, and so we can strengthen these ties between China and African countries. Now, I'd like to invite my friend, His Excellency Laurent Billy, ambassador from France to China. I mean, I know that France is very active. I mean, last Tuesday, President Xi had the telephone video summit with President Macron and Chancellor Scholz. And also, of course, about 2 weeks ago, I mean, they had, again, a telephone virtual summit. I was just talking to the Paris Peace Forum Director General, just about saying yesterday, I'm sitting on the steering committee of the Paris Peace Forum, so very pleased to see Ambassador Billy. So your turn, please.
Well, thanks a lot, dear friends. I think the title of our meeting is definitively very accurate. Changing context. 2 weeks ago, the situation was quite different as it is today. I will say that in France, we start to miss the good old time of COVID because Europe is at war. So we are going to from bad to worse. When I say at war, it's not really at war, but war is back on our continent, and it's something that we didn't think that will happen. And as African Union ambassador says, we were so sure that after the post-World War II, there were enough wisdom of the world that we wanted to construct, that people understood that war was always a worse solution. It seems that it's not exactly the case. And it is too bad, because to quote or interpret our Egyptian colleague, I think really there is no alternative to multilateralism except what I hear once, chaos. That's the very reason why, as responsible UN Security Council member, we oppose the second Gulf War. And at that time, we were together with China and Russia, and we thought that it was a question of responsibility and credibility for the UN Security Council. Today's situation is not that different. The choice to go to war by Russia is deliberate, while diplomacy has still a lot of space, and all the efforts of President Macron and Chancellor Scholz and other leaders were going to bear fruits. I think there were even the possibility of an international meeting. So it's clearly a deliberate choice. We see also some other ingredients: cheap propaganda, futile accusation of threat. Let's remind you something. Exactly the same thing. Today, we appreciate China's support for EU efforts toward peace and ceasefire. But as Nicolas just mentioned, it fell short of calling for a ceasefire. We can understand, and we also share, that the situation in Ukraine is complex. There is many factors in Ukraine, but there is also very simple facts that are just to be reminded. The simple is that there is an aggressor and there is a victim, that the aggressor is a superpower and the victim is a Pacific country. And on that basis, I think it should be easier to name things. We hope that some voices like yours, it was mentioned by your Colombian colleague, can be heard, and that we will be together to work for peace. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ambassador Billy. Yeah, I think you point to the series of the situation. I think all the countries and EU, China, and all those peace saving efforts is really encouraging, and I'm sure China is willing to work with European Union to work on that perspective. And I think the EU-China relation will continue to improve given the current situation. So thank you again, Ambassador Billy. And now I'd like to invite Her Excellency Nina Kezi Mikolola, Ambassador of Finland to China, and you've been to CCG the second time you were here at the International Women's Day. So I'm glad to see you again. So your comments, please.
Thank you, and thank you to our hosts for arranging this event, and very many congratulations on the book launch. I think that the article there is written by my predecessor, so I take some liberties and perhaps not tackle these issues that he wrote about in my short thoughts. And it was mentioned in the beginning that Finland and China have had diplomatic relationship over 70 years. And if it depends on us, and I suppose you agree, I'm sure we will be ready to work for many more decades to have a good and fruitful cooperation as we have had. But as mentioned by my French colleague here, when the title is China and the World in Changing Context, I feel also I need to address the changing context that has taken place in Europe, not far from my country, in the last 3 weeks. And thus I feel obliged also to touch the war in Ukraine and in Europe, which is now taking place. And I repeat once again what you said, there has been an aggression by Russia against Ukraine, a sovereign and independent country. The attempts of this aggression is to reintroduce the spheres of influence in Europe, something that belonged to the times of Cold War, and something that my country also strongly rejects. Yet this war will have global consequences far beyond the shores of Europe. It will have significant impact on global economy and trade relations to guarantee global food security and energy supplies are pressing tasks. On a principle level, by supporting Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and self-determination and territorial integrity, we support sovereignty of all nations. And by saying no to aggressor, we also deny the bigger one the right to attack the smaller one. All in all, we fear that the international rules-based order is now under threat, something that would benefit none of us. So here we very much look at China with hope to see its strong support to UN Charter, international law, sovereignty of states, all principles that China has always advocated. After coming here, I've been here now about 6 months. I've heard now and then the words East is rising and West is declining. As a diplomat here, it will be interesting to see what kind of narratives and how this narrative will develop in the months to come. Sometimes it can be that the stronger our narrative is on something, the blinder we are to the realities in the world and close to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Makula. Yeah, so your thoughts are appreciated and very timely. Now I would like to invite His Excellency Achille Calandia, Ambassador of Georgia to China, also a contributor to our book.
Thank
Please.
you, Dr. Wang, Dr. Mabel. Thank you so much for hosting this event. And CCG is a really very good platform and one of the well-known, becoming one of the well-known think tank worldwide. And I'm pleased to mention about that. And as I know, it's among the top 50 global independent think tanks worldwide as well. So thank you once again for this special edition. And allow me to start from the Georgia-China relations perspective, and then very shortly I will mention about these challenges, what we are facing today. China is one of the top trading partners for Georgia, and it's very important that despite the global pandemic, from 2020, China became the first export market for Georgia's product. And more Georgian companies are entering into Chinese market. And the Georgian export are increasing dynamically. Also, I would like to mention that Georgia is playing a very active role and is willing to play more efficient role in Belt and Road Global Initiative, as Georgia is Europe's natural gateway to Asia, as it's Europe's eastern and most point, both by land and by the sea. Right now, Georgia is attracting China to plans to transform itself into a logistic and transportation hub to connect Europe with Asia and vice versa. Also, we have direct freight trains from China to Georgia, and we have plenty of perspectives to increase in various directions our trade economic cooperation, and we are looking forward for that. Regarding the current challenges, first of all, I would like to say that current military aggression against Ukraine mirrors Georgia's experience. Unfortunately, the reaction of the international community in 2008 in August was not enough. And unfortunately, when by that day, it was 9th of August, and the president of Poland, Lech Kaczynski, he delivered a speech in the center of Tbilisi during the war with Russia, when 5 presidents arrived in Tbilisi to support Georgia, that now we are facing war in Georgia. Next will be Ukraine. Day after tomorrow, most probably Baltic countries, and maybe one day Poland. So now it's different situation. We, the international community, we are united against the aggression, and we have to with concrete steps, concrete meaningful steps, we have to stop this aggression, because we all know that this is not the problem of the two countries, or it's not the regional problem, it's a global problem. And I'm pretty sure that China will play a more efficient role to stop and to resolve these not very easy issues which are happening and which we are facing today. And Russia's military actions undermined territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, as well as the UN Charter and fundamental principles of international law that will have severe consequences, not only for Ukraine, but for the entire international community. So now, as I've totally agreed with my colleagues, that we need more mutual understanding, we need more solidarity to each other, and more mutual respect. And with joint efforts, we have to overcome all the challenges. A couple of weeks ago, we were talking about the post-pandemic era. Now we have to talk as well what will be in post-war era. So we have to think a lot, and we have to exchange our experiences, each other's experience, to make this world much better. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, Ambassador Canadinia. So you mentioned about the cooperation and also the Belt and Road Initiative with the signing with Georgia. China is also a signing country, a Belt and Road Initiative with Ukraine as well. I mean, actually the China-EU rail has gone up 50% in the last 2 years. So it's an enormous vital interest for China to see this pipeline open with China and EU countries. So it's important to maintain the peace and the stability there. So thank you for your comment. Now I would like to invite our friend from ASEAN, from Malaysia, Your Excellency Raja Dato Nisho, Ambassador from Malaysia to China.
Thank you very much. Let me first begin by thanking CCG for the kind invitation for me to be here and say a few words on China and the world in a changing context, and to commend you on the publication of this very important book. It is almost trite to say that the world is facing many deep structural and perhaps existential problems related to global health, wealth disparities among and within states, the climate change crisis, as well as what we spoke about just a couple of minutes ago on the recent challenges with respect to geostrategic instability. These problems are extremely serious. However, it would be wrong to say that it is not without precedent. Since 1945, when the threat of nuclear obliteration was very real, humanity has always had to deal with grave and complex issues. Mao once said, although in a different context, that there is great disorder under the heavens, so the situation is excellent. I'm not sure that I fully share such an optimistic assessment given the situation today, but certainly disorder has been something which we have experienced before. So let's not be alarmist. Let us instead be rational, objective, and honest with each other, and most importantly, with ourselves. Globalization has brought humanity closer together. In such an environment, the human family must learn to share better and to learn new realities. The West, which has been the dominant power globally for the past 200 years, has lost this position. In 1970, the G70 economies accounted for 50% of the global economy. In 2026, it is expected to be 29%. It will fall even further in time. The chaos which broke out in the West in the early days of the pandemic demonstrates the structural weaknesses of Western societies. As these developments occur, the West must accept that imposing its viewpoints and values is no longer tenable. The global South no longer needs to accept or pretend to accept that the West has the moral leadership of the world. Many equally legitimate views of the world will emerge. Once this reality is accepted, then fewer threats will be perceived, including from China, unjustifiably, in my viewpoint. And there will be, hopefully, greater order under heaven. To me, since the period of reform and opening up, China has been a force of stability in the world. This has been the assessment of Malaysia since the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1974. China is too proud, too powerful, and potentially too rich to be other than within the global economic mainstream. Since reform and opening up, China has continued to be an engine for global growth. It is an anchor for regional stability. It is trying to provide for global public goods. And just as importantly, it is an inspiration for the developing world, as many of my colleagues have said here. China is Malaysia's largest trading partner and has been for the past 12 years. Malaysia is China's 9th largest trading partner last year. Bilateral trade in 2021 stood at $176.6 billion, an astonishing increase of 35% given COVID-19. 23% of our population is of ethnic Chinese origin. Malaysia was the first ASEAN member to establish diplomatic relations with China. These demonstrate the fundamental strength of our bilateral relations. But notwithstanding these, Malaysia has issues with China. After all, there is a Malay saying, sedangkan lidah lagi digigit, even the tongue gets bitten. However, we have dealt with China for hundreds, if not thousands of years. We have dealt with China when it was strong. We have dealt with China when it was weak. We are dealing with China when it is re-emerging right now. Whatever the case may be, it has been generally productive and a happy relationship. The key idea is contained in that word, relationship. The overall interest has always been to maintain strong relations. Mutually beneficial transactions will follow as a consequence. This is what is meant by looking at the bigger picture. The pandemic has almost counterintuitively brought both countries closer together. I spoke of the 35% increase in trade last year. To build on this momentum, both countries agreed to establish a high-level committee for cooperation in the post-COVID-19 era, chaired by our foreign ministers. I believe that this is the first for both countries. The inaugural meeting was held in Zhejiang on the 4th of December 2021 in conjunction with a visit by my foreign minister. It dealt with a wide range of issues such as vaccine cooperation, GDI, collaboration in mega projects, trade in agricultural products, cultural diplomacy, as well as procurement of weapons equipment. We believe that this is, in our own small way, a contribution towards the creation of order under the heavens. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Nishawan. And yeah, you mentioned that China is a stabilizing prosperity force. I think China is really trying to do that. So hope that the world is more prosperous with the China be a contributor to the prosperity. Now, I'd like to invite Ambassador Kiri, the ambassador of Mexico to China. So your turn, please.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful to CCG for launching such a book, for holding this forum, and for the invitation. And it's a pleasure, all colleagues, to be with you. We have no shortage of major problems these days. We all, probably all my predecessors on the floor have referred to the disgraceful invasion of Ukraine, which we very much condemn, along with everybody else. I don't want to expand on that in that direction, nor on the pandemic, which continues to be the scourge of the world, now getting so very bad, so close to us in Hong Kong, where I have family, my son lives there, so I feel very strongly about that. But I want to focus a little bit on the economy and to do it going to the point, so not to take too much time. It worries me, it worries Mexico, to see a world with an increasingly fractious economic scene internationally. 44 years ago already, it's coming to half a century, that China took the path of market, the path of reform. And since then, we all know China's growth has been absolutely fantastic. And it's not just growth, but the conversion of the country, technology, and the elimination of poverty. But not just China inside. I am convinced, we are convinced, that in doing so, China has contributed in a major way to international growth. So its influence has been very positive despite frictions that inevitably occur on economic matters and trade matters and investment matters. Nevertheless, things evolved in a reasonable way. China came into WTO already over 20 years ago. And it's only in the last 5 years that things have taken a turn for the worse that worries us and that we regret. The question for us is, how will the major economies, the major trading and investment economic powers in the world find a way to rebuild mutual tolerance and to rebuild mutual understanding? And in this regard, I'm optimistic seeing the two sessions discourses, a lot of what one would expect there, but a lot of very useful information. And in particular, I saw stronger than I was expecting references to deepening reforms, continuing to open up, advancing supply side reforms, all of which have to be good news for the rest of the world. I am convinced, as an old-hand China observer, these are good news for China, but I think also for harmony with the rest of the world. The question is, how are we going, all of us, to take all that? And I believe, like the ambassador of Brazil, my good friend, that the secret lies in what we have all been doing so well for the last 70 plus years, which is multilateralism. My country is deeply committed to multilateralism on all issues, on trade, but also on defense and on education and on every aspect of like health, certainly. And I'm sure that all of our countries are on the table. I am convinced of China's sincerity in wanting to pursue the multilateral direction. And some of the measures that I just mentioned are indicators in this direction. I really hope that the rest of the countries will find a way to grab these opportunities and to begin to go in a direction that can only be good for everybody, if not essential to the world. So this is our main concern, and one on which Mexico is completely committed to construct, to build, to cooperate. We are, who can doubt it, we are part of North America. We have a 3,000 plus kilometer border with the United States, and neither the United States nor Mexico have any plans to move the country to another place. We are firmly part of North America, but we are also good friends for centuries of China, and that's going to continue to be the case. We want everybody to help the world to get back to being an orderly, evolving place as it was until not so long ago. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you, Ambassador Kui, and you actually said about this economic global importance. Multilateralism is absolutely important, and Mexico is also a member of CPTPP. So I hope that there's many more to collaborate. So now I'd like to begin, given the time, I'm continue now, and to Ambassador Her Excellency Sina Burdeseth, Ambassador of Norway to China, please.
Thank you very much, President Wang, and congratulations to CCG and all the contributors to today's book launch. All the countries represented around this table are unique. This shapes our domestic reality, but our global and interconnected reality also ties us together, making us depend on each other. The leadership of each country has a responsibility towards its domestic population, but also towards the world. That goes for my own country, Norway, as well as for China. And with China's growing role as a global power, it is natural that the world increasingly also watches China's actions, what it says, and what it does. The war in Ukraine is a watershed moment. Russia has launched an attack on international law and the international legal order that has promoted democracy, prosperity, and peace in Europe since the Second World War. Regardless of how this situation unfolds, this war marks a turning point. When we look back at it, there will be a before and an after. And we are not willing to compromise on one fundamental principle, that all sovereign states must be able to determine their own geopolitical alignment. This applies to Ukraine and to all other sovereign states in Europe or elsewhere. Friends, emerging and ongoing conflicts must be resolved through political negotiations. No other continent has as many effective mechanisms for resolving conflicts peacefully as Europe. And all of these mechanisms have been available to Russia. Now, no effort should be spared to reach an immediate ceasefire. Colleagues, the pandemic has built barriers for face-to-face communications. It has weakened understanding and in-depth analysis. A media and social media reality with information, disinformation, active discreditation, and manipulation of news sources enhances this negative effect. Those who thought that increased globalization would make diplomacy redundant have been proven utterly wrong. The role of a diplomat, and let me add, think tanks, has become profoundly more important. No matter whether you represent China, Colombia, Mexico, or Norway, or any other country, we have to analyze with cool heads and interpret with honest intentions. We have to serve our capitals with integrity in all we do, both in our outreach activities as well as within our own systems. And as such, I would like to thank you for this opportunity today, which has been an important platform for us to state some of our views. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Ambassador Brissett. So very good thought, and you're absolutely right. I mean, diplomacy it never can be missed in a year of globalization, and also thank you for mentioning think tanks. As a matter of fact, and think tank does play some role. Actually, yesterday we were talking to the think tanks in Ukraine and some parliament member there, and then they told us now the planting season is really started. It's really important now that we cannot miss that, because it's going to be very important, devastating to the agricultural and future production of this year of Ukraine. So this is a very important message that I think they are passing to our think tank, for example. So again, thank you. Now I'd like to have our good friend. I mean, His Excellency José Augusto Durete, Ambassador of Portugal to China, and also an important contributor to the book.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me for participating in the book and participating today in here. This is a rare opportunity. Some colleagues of mine I've already mentioned before. It's stimulating, it's enriching, it's contributing certainly for a better analysis and enriching our perspectives in all of us, which is our job. So congratulations, and thank you very much for having me. I wrote some time ago my contribution for your book that you kindly invited me to write. I wrote about multilateralism and about the challenges and the rule of law and the principles. And today I'd like to take the main ideas that I mentioned in this book because I think they are much up to date on this context. Nowadays, we face as many challenges, the pandemic, globalization, and the challenge of globalization and the impacts in economy, but also peace and security. So and climate change as well, of course. So all these elements are present in a certain way in these principles, rules that we have to share in all the world in order to fulfill our job. In fact, since at least 1945, the notion that there are universal principles common to all humankind has been deeply integrated in the international system. These do not imply a notion of superiority from others to others, but rather of union between everybody. They do not aim to impose rules, but they aim rather to share common principles and values in all nations. And they are not a power tool for some, but rather a tool of empowerment for everybody. The fact that these values and principles are widely shared should therefore be seen as a conquest and a victory of all, as it signifies that there is a common ground on which we can build and talk all around the world. A discourse based on them does not need to be seen as a lecture to anyone, as different views on how to achieve some of them do not need to be taken as deviation from its importance. As the current international set of shared values and principles demonstrates, there is always room for debate and improvement of these rules. Some of those that are taken for granted today were the result of strong debates some decades ago. With this evolution came great responsibility for all nations. What may be viewed by some as interference may be sought by others as a direct consequence of transparency, information, and joint accountability to values and principles enshrined in international documents signed by all with the compromise of all. What others may think as of a tool to diminish certain feats and conquests should be taken up by others as an opportunity to showcase the implementation of a commitment to development in all of its dimensions. All of this is made possible because ours is a rules-based international order. International law, the end of secret pacts or treaties, the ability to jointly define norms and patterns through dialogue, cooperation, and an open exchange of views are some of the world's most important achievements for humankind. Though sometimes discarded by some as a sign of weakness and viewed by others as a tool to be used only when it is deemed useful, the notion that the world has a set of rules and norms that is shared by all and can be jointly shaped, defined, and therefore understood is a development that cannot be underestimated. The United Nations play a central role in this common and shared architecture. An organization where all countries are equal, despite of their size, economic weight, or geographical position. An organization where all issues, big or small, are jointly discussed and analyzed, an organization that shapes our daily lives. As a firmly pro-European country, Portugal, my country, has found in the European Union a perfect example of the benefits of this multilateral approach. Portugal is now a proud member of a family that brings together 27 countries, an organization where the pooling of sovereignty is not seen as a loss for anyone, but as a gain, for all, where dialogue and compromise have replaced confrontation in our history, where despite the qualified majority rules in a vast array of areas, member states still try their best to reach a common position in which all can be comfortable. These achievements were not without costs. They were made possible by a conscious decision to favor law instead of might and to listen, therefore, before deciding rather to impose. The current rules-based international order, where debate is possible and encouraged, norms are openly discussed and updated when necessary, and international law is the glue that binds countries together, has been instrumental to the world's development and will be equally central when addressing the many challenges humanity is facing, like climate change, global pandemic, globalization, and peace and security. Different countries with different cultures, different histories, will probably always see and interpret certain facts in a different way. That does not mean that there is not a common ground uniting us all. The values we share, enshrined in international treaties, declarations, and resolutions, the architecture jointly built by all, where the United Nations and international law play a central and fundamental role, and the common responsibility to talk, but also to listen. Certain countries, due to their size, population, or economic weight, have a particular responsibility in driving this approach forward, which is why the behavior of some is more closely scrutinized than others. As with great power comes great responsibility, that should come as a surprise, but rather as an incentive to do more and to do better for the benefit of us all. Diversity is one of the world's most enriching qualities, one that defies and challenges us, but also one which must not lead to forced isolation or forceful imposition. If we live in a global and interconnected world, the actions of one country may and sometimes do impact on others, which is why we must all, diplomats, think tanks, politicians, civil society, academia, make an effort to think how one's actions may impact the view of others. Why the need to care and to foster for our common values should not be seen as interference, but rather as a platform for dialogue and common improvement. Why dialogue should never be cast aside, and why cooperation should always be preferred option over confrontation. As foreign policy begins at home, the challenge of economy recovery and of green and digital transition should be seen a way for peace and security as well, to take common approach forward for us all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Duarte, and for your well thought remarks. And you have also given quite a bit of coverage about the multi-system and how that sustain our peace and prosperity, and then the UN Charter should be upheld. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite His Excellency Ambassador Brazil Constantinescu, Ambassador of Romania to China, but also this is the second time I remember on the day the war broke out in Ukraine, you and Ambassador of Estonia, Ambassador of Latvia all came to CCG. We had a very long chat. We have actually take very good notes of your thought at that time as well. So again, thank you for coming. Your time, please.
Dr. Wang, dear Henry, thank you very much. Thank you very much for organizing this platform, for inviting me to witness the launching of this wonderful and useful book. let me say that I was not expecting to contribute. I was expecting to listen to the contributors and to be inspired by their words with the view to aspire to contribute in the future. So because I don't have a prepared text, I would like to play around with few words that has been mentioned here to speculate and maybe articulate few concepts around them. Indeed, we met exactly the day before the invasion. We met, it looks like has been years ago, centuries ago. Almost 3 weeks when everything that we built over the past 70 years has been destroyed by a sick mind of someone who has even more responsibilities than most of us here around the table to secure and to preserve what has been achieved after the Second World War, particularly the international order, and particularly in its triple capacity as a member of the United Nations, a member of the Security Council, and a member of the P5. Dear Dr. Wang, Henry, talking about words and playing with words. To be very honest, when I came here, I was sure that I am coming for the launching of a book on China and the world in a changing context that definitely has been planned, drafted long ago. But I see that this is also the title of our meeting today, and I would rather prefer to see a meeting about China and the context in a changing world. Because first of all, I believe China belongs to the world. There is no world in China. And my preference for a title that would mention China in the context in the changing world will also mean China has responsibilities that we are still looking at to be clearly spelled out. My dear friend from Egypt, Ambassador al-Badri, wanted to start his intervention with a historical moment, but that was about assassination, a historical assassination. And I don't believe when people are dying around us because of sick minds, same like 2000 years ago, we should speak about assassination. But Henry, because you mentioned about us being bridges, let me build a bridge between Muhammad, taking account on the wonderful intervention of my good friend Jose, and opening the door to Ambassador of Spain, my dear friend Rafael, because today we are also celebrating an important event for the humanity, and that is the return to Spain in 1493 of Christopher Columbus after he discovered the New World. After he discovered the New World. We saw that the world that we are living in, it's ours. And because here there were references to manipulation, to disinformation. For me, at least, as an ambassador who already served in this country 4.5 years, perhaps one of the buzzwords that I will carry with me my whole life would be win-win and shared future. I believe it's time first for shared responsibilities. We need to have share and equal responsibilities. The idea was to refer to our bilateral relations and to the changing world. And I cannot elude this because looking around the table, I have a double responsibility. I have the responsibility of being a country that recognized China among the first. Romania was the third country after Soviet Union and Bulgaria. And in the last 73 years, I believe we built one of the most special bilateral relations that serve as a model. Bilateral relation that has been always described by three words: consistency, continuity, coherence. Coherence, consistency, and continuity, including with respects, particularly in the last 30 years, to our strategic options. For us, Romanians, our link with China mark an important moment that shaped the world. That shaped the world and also shaped China. And that goes back in 1968, when a China, which was not a member of the United Nations, was not a member of the Security Council, China, which was just a country in the middle of the Cultural Revolution, stood up with Romania and spelled out the name of aggressor and the principles of international law, naming clearly that it respects the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Czechoslovakia. We all benefited from the moment, from that moment. That was the moment that somehow paved the way of your normalization of relations with the United States that we are going to celebrate 50 years of anniversary. So therefore, for us, again, seeing 141 members of the United Nations family taking this strong position in this very important moment of a crisis that we never faced over the past 70 years is rather confusion. And I believe that every hour that passes, it's a lost opportunity, because every minute that comes requires action and immediate action. Because again, I was referring to this wonderful book and hoping that your journey will continue towards maybe a new book that would be inspired by my words and called Shared Responsibility to Preserve International Order and Law. And going back to the point where I started and playing with words, from Muhammad to Jose and to Rafael, and because several of my colleagues were referring to the word inspiration, let me share with you something that it's a common thing that you meet in two different parts of the world. Above a cave in Kalimantan in Indonesia, and this is a very nice way to refer to my Indonesian colleague who is not now but has been mentioned, and he's a contributor to the book. So it's a script that it's then somewhere in a jungle in Indonesia, mentioned above the forest. And that coincides exactly with the thoughts that has been carried over by the first missionary in the New World. And it says like that: aspire to inspire before you expire. So let's take this moment as a moment of inspiration and aspiration for our shared responsibility. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Ambassador Constantine. So you have a very thoughtful speech. I think shared future and shared responsibility is I think is the right direction, and so that is really. You also talk about continuity and cohesiveness and constructive as well. So I think absolutely we work together and for this shared future. So now I would like to invite His Excellency Ambassador James Kimoyo, Ambassador of Rwanda to China. You were here also last week at the International Women's Day. I didn't realize Rwanda has a highest lady representative at the parliament. So, so good to see you again. So your turn, please.
Thank you, Dr. Wang, Yao, and my sister Mabel for inviting me again to be here. It's a pleasure. I will not go into details of the African perspective on the China-Africa relationship. Ambassador Hemtra adequately addressed the cooperation between China and Africa, and the two other colleagues talked about what we have done with China in many different sectors. Before I go on, let me congratulate my colleagues who have contributed this wonderful piece of work. I will take time to read. It's very interesting to hear the perspectives of different ambassadors on the particular issues that we are discussing. When I got the invitation, Dr. Wang, I looked at the topic. The subject matter is talking about the changing context. China and the world in a changing context. And the changing context should be around the issues. What are the issues that we are talking about that we would want to view from the perspective of what China does in the world and its contribution? Yeah? So if you look at, for instance, the contribution of China in many different aspects of global transformation, start with health. Where is China in terms of innovation in that particular sector and what it does to participate and support the efforts to deal with the challenges in the area of health? How about the trade and investment? What is the contribution of China? What the size of the economy? The second largest economy in the world, the largest exporter of commodities and goods around the world. What is the contribution in WTO, in the global value chains? How do you deal with the rapidly changing business environment? Because if you look at, for instance, the contribution of digital economy to global economy, China is moving very fast. How do you deal with China as a country that is transforming very fast in terms of digital economy? My colleagues here who market the products, coffee and tea and chili, we came here and we could not catch up if we were not able to adjust with the rapid transformation in terms of technology. You know, someone wrote a book and the title is Disrupt Yourself or You Are Going to Be Disrupted by Others. So if you don't adjust according to the rapid speed of transformation, in which case China is rapidly growing and transforming, and so does the world. How do we match the two so to be able to address the formidable challenges that we face as the world? And it has been mentioned by colleagues around the table, we are faced with a multitude of challenges: terrorism, poverty, health issues, unfair multinational trading system, cyber security, migration and immigration issues. How do we work together to deal with the formidable challenges we face as the world? Last week we were talking about gender discrimination. We talked during your earlier submission, Doctor, you talked about the human trafficking. How do we work together to deal with these issues? And I like the idea that has been, floated around the table about the fact that we absolutely have to work together to deal with these issues. There is no any other option you have, no other alternative. We can't disband the multilateral institutions that we have to deal with these challenges, because that will mean that you are going to fail. So from Africa perspective, and in this case, let me talk about Rwanda. Honestly, what I have seen, and I've been in this trade for some time, a diplomat. I have served my country in different countries. This is my close to 2.5 years in China. Let's talk about trade. Most of you have attended the China International Import Expo. What do you see there? When China talks about opening up, widely, continuing to open up, let's not talk about what started in 1978. What has continuously been done by this government, including the current CI? You see there, I went there in 2019, my first impression was, oh, so everybody's here. including the advanced economies, displaying, showcasing their products. That is an opportunity offered to the rest of the world to say, as much as China is the largest exporter of goods, here we are, we want to provide a platform for each individual country to come and showcase their products so that they're able to trade with us. I have seen a big number of companies from China moving to African continent, I believe in other places in the world, to do the investments that are really necessary. When you ask any African leader, what has China done in Africa, is bridging the infrastructure gap. So for me, when China talks about bridge, road and bridge initiative, Belt and Road Initiative, they talk about opening up, they talk about cooperation, win-win cooperation with the aim of achieving shared future. It's something that should be embraced and work together with China to be able to deal with the issues that I just mentioned. But Chairman, I want to just close to 2 points that after everybody's presented, the bilateral, multilateral, my mind is fixated on 2 important issues that I mentioned, then I end my presentation here. 1, how do we then engage, not only China, but all of us? How can we ensure that we achieve positive and genuine engagement, which is transparent, to make sure that we deal with these issues together? Because the push and pull kind of an arrangement that we are seeing, if it continues, then we are doomed. If we open up our minds and hearts and engage genuinely and openly to deal with these issues, because we have all the resources and we instill political will to deal with the issues together, then we are going to win. That's one. Number 2, it is absolutely important and necessary for us to strengthen our multilateral institutions, short of which, I'm not a prophet, short of which we are going to go down the ditch. Support multilateralism, support multilateral institutions, finance them, participate, guide them, ensure transparency and accountability, ensure that all the decisions that are taken there are fair and are not selective. Some of us, we have gone through it the hard way. When Rwanda lost 1 million people, what the entire world was watching, I think that time we had the Olympics. Where were we? I'll be inviting colleagues in the next few, you see the note verbal today, 7th of April, we'll be talking about what happened in Rwanda. 1 million people killed in 3 months. How do we come together around one common problem, genuinely and openly, and address them? Ambassador Mohammed, my friend, said, unless if there is any other alternatives, then we disband. If you do so, then you are doomed. So, Chairman, I think this round table is quite interesting. Unfortunately, you are dealing with the diplomats. Maybe we invited the academics here. Maybe they can open up more. But I think for me, this is very useful platform whereby we hear different perspectives. But those are 2 important points that I wanted to submit to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Kimoyo. And actually, you mentioned very well about all those things that China has been doing, import, export, infrastructure. So I think all those things probably trade is absolutely important. That we have to continue investment and economic cooperation. So thank you for your good words. Now I'd like to. We're coming to the end almost, but very important. We still have 3 very important ambassadors. We would like to invite Her Excellency Anendika Shahadolink, ambassador from Slovenia to China, also a contributor to our book. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Wang. And thank you to the CCG for the invitation to contribute to the book and also to the debate today. And allow me to start with quoting a dear Egyptian colleague, Mohammed El-Badri, who was speaking about who made whom, in whose image, and so on, and the impossibility of changing, molding a country in the image of another. Since I belong to the half of the humanity that was not even created in an image, but from a rib of a man, I can tell you that how to say, I do not have that impetus to change somebody so much, very well developed. So second, I'm also represented a small European country, which by the definition is on the margins of power. When you are on the margins of power, and sometimes you are at the center, sometimes, and hopefully not too often, of the geopolitical conflict, then you really look to the word and to the issues from a different perspective. When speaking that I'm coming from Slovenia, that means also that my country came into existence after former Federal Republic of Yugoslavia ceased to exist. And you might remember there were war in Europe in the 90s, and in the war that is happening now on European soil in Ukraine, I can also, that might be interesting for the Chinese participants, the consulate of Slovenia in Kharkov on the so-called Freedom Square was destroyed, and luckily there were no victims because during that the destruction or the bombing. So, but while I completely agree, I also agree, Ambassador of Malaysia, who also, voiced the opinion that, who can speak in whose name and whether that is appropriate, and how the international order should be more inclusive, that the voices should be heard, the different perspectives should be heard. I very much agree with that. But on the other side, what we are also speaking, when we are speaking about the international order, we are not speaking just about the centuries, how the states somehow, or the essence, how the countries through the centuries of wars, peace, etc., somehow molded their relations. But we are really speaking about international law and the principles that we all agree about. One of those principles is the sovereignty, the territorial integrity, and that is blatantly violated. So when we speak about the war in Ukraine, we also speak about the UN Charter and the principles of the UN Charter. We speak about the wide consensus, and at the same time, I would say also, a lot of the speakers before me already mentioned the role of China, the China being P5 member, being a major country, being a global economic power. That is why the eyes of the world are turned towards Beijing. And I do think that Beijing does understand, and that is the principle that is always stated, the sovereignty, the equality of sovereign states and territorial inviolability. But to stop what is happening now, shared responsibility, as Basil said, and shared work needs to be achieved to stop the bloodshed now. And frankly, I also wanted to echo what you mentioned, Dr. Wang, and it's truly so, why there is a particular place for Beijing today, because it has a solid partnership with Russia on one side and with Ukraine on one side. I think that just last year, you celebrated, China and Ukraine celebrated 10 years of bilateral partnership agreement. It is important, and that is why the eyes of the world are actually directed towards China. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Ambassador Shadowlink, and for your comments. And yeah, I think that China does have, gradually, and I think get more involved on these international issues. I think, I from a think tank point of view, I think China absolutely is more participating, and so I'm glad that President Xi has mentioned that they really like to work with the international community on the crisis of Ukraine. So absolutely very important. Now, my dear friend, also His Excellency, also Rafael Dixcali de Mazal Ridri, Ambassador of Spain to China, and also important contributor to our book. Your turn, please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang, and congratulations to the Center for China and Globalization for this invitation, which comes at a very timely moment, and also for the publication of this book. To talk today about China and the world in a changing context inevitably means to talk about the attitude of China towards the most serious crisis for peace and security in the European continent since 1945. This is a situation which places China in a very significant position and could give China a very important role for a number of reasons. First of all, of course, as a P5, it has a special responsibility for maintaining peace and security. Secondly, it has a very special relationship with Russia, which it can put to good use, because Russia is also becoming probably with the course of time and the development of events, more and more dependent on this relationship with China. But also because China has been a rising power which has benefited immensely from stability. Stability has been fundamental for the rise of China, and you have always declared to be a country in favor of stability. If the conflict continues, the global economic consequences will be very serious for all, but especially for China because of its dependence on world markets, because of its sensitivity to inflation, to loss of jobs in such an important political year as 2022. Also, if the perception abroad, especially in Western countries, is that China is perhaps not doing everything it could do to help facilitate a ceasefire, this could affect also the perception of China in other countries. China, as the rest of the international community, has a lot to lose from this crisis, but also has a lot to win. It has a lot to win if it contributes to making the stability of the international economic system again come back with positive results for your economy and for the economy of the rest of the world. But also, if you are perceived as playing an important role in achieving a diplomatic breakthrough, an early ceasefire, because as Basil said, we cannot lose to one day. Every day, terrible things are happening, and we cannot just go to sleep. So you have a problem and an opportunity. And this opportunity, if you play it well, can not only be good for your economy, it can be extremely good for your international stature, and certainly for your relations with European Union and Western countries, and not only European Union, all Western countries. I'm sure you know that much better than me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador de Mazi Rido. Thank you very much for your comments. I think absolutely. I mean, the crisis affected the global supply chain and the economy heavily. And I mean, you know that Ukraine and Russia actually counts about 30% of the imports of the export of the grain and globally. And you know that China is a big country of importing, and also energy-wise. I mean, China, 70% of our Chinese energy depends on international supply, so that drives price up. So it's really very, very severe for China too. So as a Chinese word said, there's always two words: there's danger and there's opportunity. So let's hope that we can get opportunity out of this. But the last but not least, also very important participant this afternoon, my good friend, His Excellency Bernardino Ragazzoni, the ambassador of Switzerland to China. I remember last time you and Ambassador Billy was here, with CCG, we worked out together with a Francophone conference roundtable. So today I'm very glad to see you. So your floor, please.
Mr. President, dear Henry, Mrs. Secretary General, dear Mabel, dear colleagues, thank you for providing us once again with this space for debate. Center for China and Globalization is a unique instrument for creating bridges between China and the world. Even more so at the time of travel restrictions, which continue keeping us apart, amplifying distances. It's an issue we addressed last July. Unfortunately, there has been no progress since then. And I think that the title China and the World remains justified for the time being. I am also confident that CCG's walls are much appreciated sounding boards, amplifying our voices. Congratulations to the authors and to CCG for this new book, China and the World in a Changing Context. The context indeed is changing, as many noticed this afternoon in their speeches, at a dramatic speed. Green growth, energy crunch, COVID itself. We have been thinking that globalization would have provided us with a safety net, the one of economic rationality, as a thread allowing us to strive for the better. Then came war. For the first time since World War II, at the heart of Europe, one country has decided to withdraw the right to exist of his neighbor. No rationality, but destruction. The foundations of security in Europe and beyond are at risk. Facing this situation, Switzerland went this time for the extra mile. While maintaining military neutrality, it adopted the whole lot of European sanctions against Russia. A change in the way we implement our neutrality policy. It was Switzerland's responsibility to do so, along with providing massive humanitarian aid to the affected populations. And the responsibility awaits us all, at no exception, to stop the war and to raise our voices for the protection of civil populations. Responsibility is also what the world awaits from China. The kind of responsibility coming from being a global power pursuing peace and stability, as we often hear. More precisely, it is the responsibility which comes from the special partnership Beijing has with Moscow. It means two things: working earnestly and without ambiguity to stop the war, taking concrete action towards a Russian leadership to this aim. A friend listens to a honest friend telling him about his wrongdoings. Secondly, urging that friend to uphold international humanitarian law. Attacks directed against civilians are an international crime. Switzerland calls on all parties to strictly respect the rules of war stated by the Geneva Conventions of 1949. China's increased engagement on this issue will help reduce the terrible human costs of the war. Neutrality is not indifference. Those who can take action for peace must do their utmost now. In the end, what will remain in memories is whether one has acted responsibly or not. We need to work together to overcome this test responsibly and take action for peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Bernardino Regazzoni, and for your also final but very excellent speech as well. I think that absolutely the whole world needs to work together. But before we conclude, I'd like to have Dr. Li just briefly mention how you can help promoting this book. Dr. Li is the publisher, managing director for Spring Nature in China. So just give a word of how we can really amplify Ambassador's book through your network. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. I didn't expect to speak today, so just came unprepared.
about the communication of and distribution, dissemination of scholarly content, of the book contents. I can't help feeling disappointed or even disheartened hearing about perceived shrinking space for communications, which I guess is very much true in the domain of public communications. But we work for a scholarly publisher, and our role is to bring research outputs, scientific and scholarly research outputs from the global world and bring them to the global audience. That's why publishing open access is a plus for this purpose, because that means readers around the world can access the content without any paywall and freely share, read, and amplify the ideas published in this world. I think in the ideal world of academic communications, authors and readers are able to communicate freely and completely transparently, as long as the research and research outputs are executed in ethical, by ethical conducts. That's basically the principle for academic publishing. And we are very much willing to invest our humble efforts into helping researchers around the world, including the countries in the sanctioned world, countries, and also the rest, by publishing their research, their ideas together, put them through the peer review scrutiny, and then publish them for the whole world. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Li. And also, but last but not least, I would also like to invite Mr. Go Haodong. He's the former deputy representative of Chinese mission to the African Union, but also a CCG non-resident senior fellow to say a few words in the end as well.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. Please allow me to make my remarks by making two proposals. The first one is that today's remarks or speeches by excellencies and ambassadors are brilliant and very, very informative, encouraging, constructive, sincere, and frank. So is it possible that to make these remarks or representations into the books or into the second edition of this book? My second proposal is that, dear ambassadors and all diplomats, please pick up your pen, write about China. You know why I make this proposal? Because my own experience told me this. Diplomats looking the country he's working and living in a different way. A journalist or a tourist visit a country, make a safari to Africa for 1 week, maybe he can or she can write 7 journals which go viral on the internet. A so-called writer or author spends 1 month in a country, may come back, write a book about that country. But diplomats, when we stay in a country for 1 year also or 3 years, we cautiously write about this country, maybe in 1 paper or 1 book, but very convincing, very, very important reference for business communities, for academic research, or even most importantly for decision makings. As a very, very important reference. Please, excellencies and diplomats, senior or junior, pick up your pen and write. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Go, and very good ending remarks. I think we had a very, very productive, as Ms. Go said, constructive, sincere, and very open dialogue this afternoon, and that's really the spirit of CCG has been promoting. I think we have a very rich, concrete analysis, suggestions, but also deep concerns, and we are all having here. So I think it really shows how international community, particularly represented at this afternoon, together with our book, together with your view that expressed at this event. CCG is taking really good notes on that. We make a good summary of that. We report to the relevant departments for the reference. I think that one of the things I think not only everybody gave the analysis on the Chinese situation, the progress China made, the impact China has, but also now for the more this kind of a crisis situation, how we can really promote China's role there. So I think absolutely well received. We are really appreciate that, and we continue. I mean, of course, not only from CCG but from our networks to get more constructive recommendations to the government to see how we can really make this crisis to the end. But also, I'm thinking personally, as I wrote in my New York op-ed, can we have this G7? Probably. I mean, P5 plus Ukraine plus EU, have starting some talks, and so that we can really get the multi-party talks going, and China could be at the table to really see make the progress. So that could be one of my personal recommendations on that. But finally, I'd like to thank all of you again. I think we had a very good afternoon. It's a very long, almost 3 hours discussion. So CCG will have its annual forum on June 18 and 19. Please mark your calendar. And also 18 and 19, yes, and of June. And also we're having also a global young leader dialogue at that time. So we're inviting all of you to come with also our annual forum. Also, we have quite a few head of state to send us messages. We will welcome you to join us on that. President Xi will probably also send his messages. So we hope that we're promoting this international young leader community together. So again, we are ending with a cocktail, but let's have a photo first. We all of you are here, and then we'll have a little children's choir, to sing for you. Maybe have a little performance. We hope that we can have some cheerful spirit for peace and stability. So thank you all very, very much. Let's call it a day. Thank you.